This is a anti-hate response to the video Desteni What 13 Questions, and I would just like to address one of the questions, which in essence, if I can paraphrase, is basically it's basically the claim that Desteni and what Desteni stands for is a belief system, and then asking, since it's a belief system, under the assumption that it's a belief system, why Desteni would, for example, preach that there's no God, and wouldn't that in fact mean that Desteni is a belief system? So the point that I'm seeing within this is to consider is that Desteni is not a belief system. Because, firstly, a belief system, any system is based on certain fundamental axioms. And, in fact, all systems from that perspective are belief systems. Axioms that are not provable but are just accepted, because then if you accept certain fundamental axioms or certain fundamental statements or beliefs, if you want to call them that, then certain consequences flow from that. And one thing to consider within this is that Desteni doesn't preach a belief system. Desteni itself is not a belief system, because the tools that Desteni shares and the perspective that Desteni shares is simply what is here for anyone to see if they're actually looking at what is here. Right? If you are focused within a belief system, then you only perceive through that belief system, and you'll only see things in accordance to your belief system, which means you're not actually seeing what's here. You're only actually playing with different relationships that you have created within your own belief system. But what is actually here is not a belief system. It's actually what's physically here. Now, within that, I realize that within myself, I have beliefs. I believe lots of different things. And that's, in fact, why, or what I should say is that's what Desteni is sharing, is that this world exists as belief systems. The consciousness that we all participate in, the money system, the education system, all the systems we participate in are actually fundamentally a belief system, and Desteni is actually challenging that belief system, and in fact all belief systems. Because if, for example, I am actually here in this physical reality, then why would I require a belief system? I would only require a belief system if I'm trying to create some sort of consequence that would flow from that specifically designed belief system. But if I'm actually here, and I'm equal to the physical reality, right, then why would I require to create something as a belief? It's not necessary. So from that perspective, I can see that it's a false assumption to say, firstly, that Desteni is a belief system simply because they say there is no God. But also that really indicates that someone who's claiming that Desteni just claims there is no God has not actually really investigated and done all of the research into Desteni and watched all the videos and read all the articles and really considered the full perspective that Desteni and all the, even the members and, you know, all the beings that come through the portal, what everyone is sharing. Because if you're saying, for example, Desteni claims there's no God, I mean, you haven't actually listened to all the information. You haven't actually heard any of it. Because Desteni doesn't claim that there is no God. Desteni simply states that the God that, for example, people believe in is not real. Because if he were, for example, let's just take a Christian God. The Christian God, who is apparently full of love and is all-loving, right? We could easily use common sense and say, well, that God can't possibly exist, because if God is all love and he created everything, then why would evil exist? Why would God, who is all-loving, even allow evil to exist at all? So that from that simple perspective, you can say that God does not exist. The God of your belief system does not exist. Does that mean that there is no God? I don't think it means that, because, I mean, the actual physical reality, everything that's here, you could consider that God if you want to call it that. But the point is, if you are coming from a belief system about what you believe and define God as, then of course you'll miss what's here, and you won't see that as what actually is God, because you're trying to look at it only from your limited perspective of your belief system. So it's very easy, because I understand how easy it is to be trapped, to allow yourself to be trapped within a belief system, because I've done this myself, and to only look at things through that belief system, and to only hear things within the context of that belief system. But at the end of the day, what it came down to for myself was really looking at what I really cared about, and whether I was really attached to the belief systems that I had, and whether in fact those belief systems that I had actually supported me and supported everyone, and to actually become more and better, not more, but to live the life that we all actually would want to live within common sense. Like, you'd want to have a life where you're comfortable, you don't have to worry about things. And why would you want someone else to not? Why wouldn't you want someone else to have that life? Especially when you consider the fact that we're all here together, and that if I have to abuse someone to get what I desire, then ultimately that's actually to my disadvantage, because one, that person's going to hate me for that, and they're going to probably want to retaliate. So I'm always have to be in constant fear and fighting against them trying to harm me back. And also, though, if you're constantly abusing someone to get what you want, imagine then if you step outside of that belief of you have to have that thing you desire, and consider the possibility of what life might be like if you actually instead asked the other person what they would like, and then came to an agreement on something that you could both enjoy, and then work together to achieve that. And then suddenly you're not having to fight or struggle against someone else to get something, and it just takes basically realigning what matters to you. And that's been a very fascinating process for myself to go through, which is evaluating and examining and investigating what I actually have cared about throughout my life, and questioning it, and actually deconstructing it, like taking it apart and saying, like, why should I care about this? Like, why should I care about the things that I care about? What I've realized is that I actually simply accepted and believed that these certain things are valuable. Like, just take it for example, having a fast car. Having a fast car because it makes you feel powerful, and it makes you feel like important, and people look at you. Why are those things important to me? And I've stopped that, because I don't actually care about that anymore. I'd much rather everyone feel welcome, and everyone feel comfortable, and everyone have what they want, rather than me just having that one point that I can show off, because that just actually indicates a point of insecurity within myself. If I need others' recognition, for example, to make me feel good, it implies that there's a very lack within myself. So that in itself is a core fundamental belief system that I had accepted and allowed within myself, which is that I have a lack, and therefore I need to take from others to fulfill that that void within myself. That's a belief. See, that's a fundamental axiom that one would accept, and then create consequence for themselves based on it. Because then if you believe that, then you start believing there's all these things you have to do as a consequence of your belief. But what you can realize, and for me it's been a process of realizing this, and actually not just realizing it, but then actually, correcting it, and then actually living that correction, which is what the Desteni process is all about, is actually now realizing, living the correction of this belief system, stopping it, and then finding out what's actually here. So instead of believing I know what's here, rather perhaps realizing I don't actually know, because if I did, I wouldn't require a belief system. I wouldn't have to just accept things on faith, just make up something and then say, well, okay, I accept that. No, what if our starting point of humanity was to actually find out what's here, There's a lot of interesting questions in that video that I'm responding to, such as, what's the consciousness in plants, and all these things. But it's funny because we have to make experiments and then kind of just believe that we know what it is. We don't really see it directly. We don't know. No one really knows what's really going on. Unless you're actually here and you're not focused on your mental reality belief system, then perhaps you can say you know. But for myself, I'm not going to claim to know, because I know that I don't, right? And to say that I know would just be arrogant and ultimately just pointless, because why do I have to pretend I know something I don't? Why not just not worry about it? I don't need to, for example, make myself feel important and therefore believe I know things to make myself feel important because I believe I need to feel important, for example. I don't accept that. You know, it's much more simple to just be here and breathe, you know? And that's something that has been shared with me through Desteni that I didn't realize before, and I'm still within a process of not only realizing that, but starting to live it and practice it daily in every moment. And admittedly, sometimes I fall, but then I see the point and I start over again, and then I move. And that's really all it takes. It's so fascinating because it's just a simple process, you know? You stop believing that you know anything. You stop believing in things just because someone told you, or just because, you know, you want things to be a certain way, because if they were that way, you wouldn't need to believe it. It would just be as such, and you wouldn't have to think twice about it. It would just be a knowingness. You would just be certain. So the very fact that one would even require a belief system simply implies that one isn't willing to just remain here and breathe. Right? And what I've realized is that is actually the simplicity of the whole process. And now it's a process of disciplining myself and correcting myself whenever I make mistakes. And that's really all it takes.